Once, there was a king who was famous not only for being the ruler of his country, but also for his unique features. The king had one leg that limped and one small eye, which made him different from others. Despite this, he was a wise and kind ruler who was loved by people for his fairness and wisdom. However, some people made fun of him because of his physical condition, telling mocking stories behind his back. The king knew about this, but never let it affect his confidence. He believed that true greatness is not in one's appearance, but in one's character and actions. One day, the king decided to have a grand portrait painted to preserve his legacy for future generations. He wanted the portrait to show his bravery, wisdom, and leadership. For this purpose, he invited 3 famous painters to the palace. Among them was a 7-year-old boy who had become famous for his exceptional skills. Many people doubted the boy's ability because he was so young compared to the experienced painters. But the king believed in giving everyone a chance. The king instructed the painters,
I want my portrait to show my greatness. Use your creativity and present me as a true king.
After saying this, he left them in a large room filled with canvases, paints, and brushes. As soon as the king left, 2 of the older painters started whispering to each other. One said,
If we paint the king as he really is, with his small eye and limping leg, he might think we are mocking him and could punish us.
The other agreed.
You're right. It's better to make him look more beautiful and perfect so that he will be happy. But if we paint him without his physical flaws, the king might still get upset. He may think the painting doesn't look like him.
The 7-year-old boy, who had been sitting quietly in a corner, overheard their conversation. Unlike the older painters, he didn't care about what the king would think. He focused all his attention on his art and wanted to show the king's true character through his painting. The 2 older painters began working on the portrait, trying to hide the king's real features to make him look more perfect. They made the king's small eye bigger, straightened his limp leg, and turned him into an ideal figure. On the other hand, the boy was happily working, freely expressing his thoughts, and capturing the true greatness of the king in his painting. Several hours later, the king returned to the hall to see the work of the painters. The 2 older painters had not finished their portraits, and, in a panic, left the room before the king arrived. They were afraid the king would be upset with their work. But the boy stood confidently by his completed portrait. When the king asked to see his creation, the boy pulled back the curtain. Everyone in the hall was amazed. In the portrait, the king was shown hunting on the ground. His limp leg was bent behind him, hidden by the pose, and his small eye was closed as he aimed an arrow at a large apple hanging from a tree. The portrait highlighted the king's bravery and skill, while his physical flaws were beautifully hidden. The hall was filled with praise and admiration. The king, surprised for a moment, then smiled and said, "This portrait not only shows me as a king, but also expresses my soul. You have focused on my greatness instead of my physical flaws." The king rewarded the boy with valuable gifts and appointed him as the royal painter. Over time, the boy created many masterpieces, which became part of the kingdom's legacy. That day, the king issued a decree: "No one in my kingdom will be judged or mocked based on their physical condition. True greatness lies in a person's actions, not their appearance." This story teaches us that real power and greatness are not about being perfect, but about accepting ourselves and making an impact through our actions.